All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're cracking open a biblical cold case that's been stumping investigators for, about 2,600 years. The mysterious vision of the prophet Habakkuk. It's a fantastic story of justice, doubt, and a divine puzzle that scholars are still trying to piece together.
And when I say it's a puzzle, I really mean it. One scholar famously described the book not as a simple story, but as a veritable minefield for critical study. It's short, it's intense, and it is absolutely packed with challenges that have sparked centuries of debate. Because at its heart, this isn't just a prophecy. It's a courtroom drama. Seriously. The book of Habakkuk is this raw, almost shocking confrontation, where a mortal prophet basically stands up, points his finger at the heavens, and puts God on trial, demanding answers for why the world is so unjust.
So let's start at the crime scene, the world as Habakkuk sees it. He looks around and all he sees is a world just drowning in chaos and corruption. The law is a joke, and honestly, he has had enough.
He just cries out, "How long, God, am I going to scream for help while you do nothing?" He says, there's this wicked one out there, twisting justice, cornering the righteous. It's a really powerful and desperate plea. And this, right here, is our first big clue in the investigation. Who are the wicked? The text never actually names them, which has left scholars wrestling with their identity for centuries. Just who is causing all this trouble? Well, the suspects generally fall into two main camps. Theory 1, they were a foreign power, a hostile empire like Assyria or Egypt that was crushing the nation from the outside. Or, Theory 2, the call was coming from inside the house. The wicked were actually a corrupt king or some powerful group rotting the nation from within.
So, just as the prophet is demanding justice against this mysterious enemy, God finally answers. But this is where the story takes a massive, and I mean massive, unbelievable twist.
God declares, "You want justice? Fine, I'm sending the Chaldeans." Now you have to understand, the Chaldeans, who you might know as the Babylonians, were famous for being unbelievably brutal. They were this terrifying, violent, and basically unstoppable force.
So this response doesn't solve Habakkuk's problem. It makes it 1,000 times worse. His new question becomes, wait a minute, hold on. How can a holy and just God use an even more wicked nation as his instrument of justice? It's a huge theological crisis. Totally stunned, Habakkuk retreats to his watchtower to wait for a better explanation. And it's up there, as the prophet waits for that second answer, that we get the central clue of this entire cold case, a divine vision that has become its own puzzle.
God speaks again, and he gives a command that has just echoed through history. Write the vision and make it plain on tablets, so that a herald may run with it. This message is urgent, it's important. It needs to be written down so clearly that anyone can understand it.
But here's the mystery. The text never explicitly says, the vision is. It's a massive cliffhanger. God commands him to write something down, but the contents of that vision are never clearly identified. It has left scholars and theologians on a centuries-long scavenger hunt to figure it out.
Okay, so how have the investigators tried to solve this? Well, scholars have turned this book upside down looking for that missing vision, and over time, they've put together a lineup of the 3 most popular suspects.
For decades, the investigation really focused on 3 main candidates. Was the vision that famous declaration that the righteous will live by faith? That's a big one. Or was it the series of 5 woes, basically curses, pronounced against the oppressor? Or maybe it was the epic poem in chapter 3, describing God's awesome power. All of them are pretty compelling possibilities.
But what if everyone was looking in the wrong place? What if the answer wasn't some future prophecy or a deep theological statement, but something God had already said?
A more recent thesis proposes a 4th and pretty surprising solution, that the most crucial clue was the one everyone might have overlooked because it was hiding in plain sight, right at the beginning of the story. This new theory argues that the vision wasn't a separate message at all. No, instead it was the very first, horrifying answer God gave the prophet, the announcement that he was raising up the Chaldeans. And when you think about it that way, it just clicks, right? God was essentially telling Habakkuk, look, I know what I just told you is shocking. It's almost unbelievable. That's why you need to write it down, make it plain, so that when it happens, people will know it was my doing. Now, while this new theory is really compelling, the case officially remains open among scholars. There's no final, definitive verdict. And, perhaps that's the whole point.
You see, this ongoing debate isn't a failure to solve the puzzle. It's actually proof that these ancient texts are still alive. They aren't just dusty relics, they are living, breathing stories that continue to challenge and provoke and invite us to join the investigation.
Ultimately, what you should take away from all this is that Habakkuk's enduring power comes from its raw honesty. It's not about providing simple solutions, but about having the courage to ask the hardest questions about faith and suffering and divine justice, even when the answers are confusing or painful.
And that leaves us with one final thought. In a world that often demands quick fixes and simple explanations, the book of Habakkuk challenges us to ask, how do we find meaning when we're faced with mysteries that have no easy answers? Maybe the most profound truths aren't found in the solutions we get, but in having the courage to keep asking the questions.